Welcome to this week's edition of Inter-University Debate. I am so excited to host this edition because the universities have now progressed to the quarterfinals. In the beginning, we had several universities and they were grouped into 6 groups. And out of the 6 different groups where the universities were sent into, 12 universities made it to the quarterfinals. And one of the universities that made it to the quarterfinals is Makerere University that we are hosting today. Welcome to this edition. I'm Latia Jendafansi. I'm your moderator for today. I'm an advocate, I'm a lecturer and a tax consultant. So today we are having a very interesting topic. We are debating digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth in all this? This is something that is so current. It is a matter of discussion right now in the country as well as worldwide. Without wasting time, let me introduce the debaters from Makerere University who are going to tackle this topic today. First and foremost, let me introduce the first debater, and that is Benson C. Mayanja. Benson, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. for the kind welcome to the discussion today. My name is Benson C. Mayanja. My apologies for not turning on my video. I have been advised by Joe that my network is a bit gibberish, so I should keep my camera off. But nonetheless, I'm very glad to be here and I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation.
Thank you so much. So Benson actually represented Makerere University during the inter-university debate, and he made sure that Makerere University qualify for the quarterfinals. So Benson, thank you so much for keeping up with that spirit and for lifting your university to the next stage of the debate. So our second debater for today is called Ruth Kyobutungi. So Ruth, you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I am Ruth Kyobutungi. I do biomedical lab technology. I'm in my final year, Makerere University. I am certainly glad to be here discussing things concerning the youth. I believe that we have been given an opportunity in an era like this to study, to interface with different people, to get information, and we have a responsibility. So I look forward to discussing this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruth. We are happy to have you, and we know your presence makes the debaters out there and potential debaters know that debate is not only for lawyers, so it's for other professions as well. So we are glad to have you. Our third debater for today, still from Makerere University, is Mr. Baluuku Derrick. Derrick, you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I also must say that I'm very happy to be here, and I am really very delighted that I'm going to share some thoughts with you guys. I really can't wait to also hear from you. Yeah, I'm actually doing Bachelor's of Development Economics at Makerere University 3rd year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Derrick. We are happy to have you here. Last but not least, we have Ms. Pretta Namasaba. Pretta, you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pretta Namasaba. I am a second year law student at Makerere University. I'm glad to be here. Today's topic is of interest to all of us as Ugandans and the youth, and I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Pretta. We are also looking forward to this very interesting discussion. So those are our debaters for today, 4 panelists representing Makerere University for today's debate. So this debate is brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV, and it airs every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Civic Space TV. Okay, so let's get into the debate. As earlier stated, our topic is digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth in all this? Without preempting the discussion, let me invite the first panelist who is going to give us his introductory remarks. So Benson C. Mayanja is the first debater. So Benson, as you introduce this topic, I would like you to answer the question of what you understand by digital rights. You have the floor, Benson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tenda, for the opportunity to speak once more on issues such as this. So firstly, I would like to stress the importance of a critical understanding of what digital rights are, and with specific regard to the kind of discussion that we're having today, then the most important thing would be to be able to contextualize it in a world we live in today. So I'll give you a very good example. As we can recognize that in the wake of COVID-19, we were slapped with the stern reality that we had to shift mentalities from what we had as conventional setup situations or conventional meetings of minds, and had to now divest most of our energies into virtual platforms such as Zoom, such as Google Meet, and all the other platforms that you can think about. But the most important thing is, are you protected while you use these different devices, while you use these different social medias? I think the biggest challenge that we've now come to face as a world in the wake of 2022 is what digital rights mean to us and how important they are. COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to appreciate these rights much more, and the easiest understanding that we can have of digital rights is really the inalienable rights that come with the use of digital spaces and the use of social media platforms. So questions such as freedom of expression, privacy, which of course is a very serious and a very fundamental right when it comes to the entire discussion as we delve into emerging technologies and what it means for climate justice, are basically what we need to be cognizant of. So when we talk about digital rights, we're basically talking about the rights that accrue as a result of engaging, associating, or using digital platforms such as social media, such as interactionism platforms, Zoom, Google Meet, Facebook, and all the other rights that come with it. So I think this discussion, or at least for an introduction, so that I do not preempt the discussion for the rest of the speakers, is really to look at digital rights and what it means for countries such as Uganda, that is now being forced to walk the path that very many other countries did a couple of years back. Do we have enough laws that protect us? Do we have laws that protect us in the first place? Can we have a strengthening of the legal framework that protects the rights of users on digital platforms? Or are we really in a position where we need to sit back and rethink our strategies? So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And thank you very much. And I beg to stop at that.
Okay, thank you so much. That has been Benson giving us introduction to this very interesting topic on his end, and he was able to ably define for us digital rights and its scope as well. So let us hear from our second panelist, and that is Ruth Kyobutungi. So Ruth, kindly give us your introduction to this topic. And in your introduction, please define what you understand by emerging technologies and its scope in this discussion. Thank you. So Ruth, you have the floor.
Thank you so much again. So to the best of my understanding, emerging technologies are new technologies, as the term suggests, that are coming up from obscurity. We do not know much about them, but of course they are headed to being the main thing we are going to be using in the coming years. For instance, when you look at things like gene therapy, when you look at stem cell therapy, you look at things like cancer vaccines, there are very many things, nanotechnology. That is what I do understand by emerging technologies. many have said that this could be dangerous. Look at AI. They're saying perhaps we could have invasion of privacy. However, I believe that at the end of the day, what we are going to look at is not to stop this from emerging, because already they have been given birth to. They are coming on board. However, it is to inform people, to give reliable information, facts that are going to help people to understand. And when they understand, to help them come to informed decisions. At the end of the day, technologies cannot be done away with, because we keep on advancing from each step. We see that humanity keeps advancing using new technologies. So the solution, I do believe, is to inform people out there to know what it means. What is a cancer vaccine? What does stem cell technology mean for you as a person? How do you benefit from it? How could it be dangerous? And at the end of the day, how do you mitigate the negative effects that could arise? Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that introduction. Let's welcome our third panelist, and that is Baluuku Derrick. So Derrick, you're welcome to give us your introduction. And in your introduction, please feature your understanding of climate justice, which is something that is also part of the discussion for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, to our panelists and our moderator. We thank you so much. So what I think about climate justice, literally I would say climate justice is about intergenerational equity, whereby we can look at the burdens and the consequences of climate change being shared equally across all the countries and across all individuals. So we understand the world right now is facing a very urgent need to address the problem of climate change. Of course, we've seen there are a lot of carbon emissions into the world right now. Countries are emitting due to industrial and technological changes. So, and this has brought about very many problems. For example, you can talk about the floods, the rising sea levels, and all this calls for really action to be taken so that these problems can be really solved. Because if we don't solve this, if we don't solve the problem of climate change, we really face an existential threat. Maybe somewhere, somehow, the whole world will need to be wiped out. So by climate justice, I think that this is whereby we are going to take into account who pollutes more, and then who, where should the burdens of really climate change, or where they should go. Yeah, and I think discussing the issue of climate change without putting into account the global perspective would be, wouldn't be in its right sense, because as we know, we are here in Africa, but climate change, we can only discuss it on a global perspective, whereby we could incorporate the likes of the US, the likes of let's say Europe, and then also Asia, because in the US, that's where you would find the biggest polluters or biggest emitters of carbon dioxide into the environment. Also, there is Brazil and then China. So yeah, I think it's better we also talk about climate justice and then climate change on a global perspective. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a good conversation around that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Derrick. We surely will have a good conversation around that. So let's get also opening remarks from Ms. Pretta Namasaba. So Pretta, it's time for you to give us your opening remarks. And my question to you is, do you think that there is a relationship between digital rights and emerging technologies? And if yes, what relationship exists between the two? Okay, so I can see Pretta is here. So Pretta, earlier we have had opening remarks from Derrick, from Derrick, from Ruth and Benson, who define digital rights, emerging technologies, and then climate justice. So my question to you is, do you think there's a relationship between digital rights and emerging technologies? If you could feature that in your opening remarks. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think that with the relationship between digital rights and emerging technologies, because emerging technologies, they are on the internet, they require the use of artificial intelligence. We have seen things self-driving cars being produced by Tesla, cars using electricity. We saw that last year, late 2020, Facebook introduced a new virtual world, and these emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, robots, they use digital means, they use digital technologies. Therefore, I think that digital rights are important when we are discussing emerging technologies, because we need to regulate how the emerging technologies are used. For instance, we can look at the metaverse. There has been a lot of bullying on the updated metaverse, on the virtual reality site. We have seen scammers use the opportunity of emerging technologies to steal people's money. We have seen the distribution of things like child pornography and all that, invasion of privacy. So as we enter into a world which has a lot of these emerging technologies, I think that it is vital that we bring in digital rights to talk about the things like privacy, to have policies that can regulate the emerging technologies, because the emerging technologies are good, but if they are not regulated, if we do not ensure that there are digital rights for the users of these technologies, it will be a catastrophe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pretta, for that. So having listened to the opening remarks, let's get into the discussion. So starting with Benson. So Benson, I'm going to start right from where you stopped. You were talking about the legal framework. So what is the legal framework right now in Uganda that governs issues of digital rights? We have listened to Pretta say there is need to even limit emerging technologies because of the different detriments that it's bringing out. So what is the legal framework that is currently in place that governs digital rights, emerging technologies, as well as climate justice?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Gender, for the question. I think really that's where the discussion ought to be, where we really need to start the discussion from, because it's almost moot to have a discussion on concepts such as digital rights when we are not well abreast with what law provides for it and any kind of protections that come henceforth. So I think the challenge that we have in Uganda really at the moment is twofold. One, the fact that we do not have a sufficient legal framework that deals specifically with digital rights. But then even secondly, that even the existing one is either a perverted one or one which has in essence found its way into a political, used as a political tool. Now, to start with the very first one, I think in relation to parliamentary obligations such as enacting laws and having the requisite power to draft laws that protect digital rights, that provide for access, it's insufficient. What we have is certainly insufficient, because the best place that you can look for digital rights at the moment, the best details are in the Computer Misuse Act. You have things such as looking into your constitution, and then maybe Article 28 of freedom of expression. But basically, all that we get to have as a result of digital rights is juxtaposing what we already have to provide for the same. And yet, I think it's rather rather absurd, because even as Pretta tries to explain to the rest of us that the world is now shifting into a dimension of digitalization, and the world where we now need to appreciate social media platforms and the metaverse itself. So if you find a country such as Uganda does not have sufficient legal framework, doesn't have sufficient legal framework to deal with I noticed that my network was saying it's buffering, but I think I'm still audible. It becomes rather very hard for a country to regulate. And we know that the law is certainly something that we need to organize. So moving on to the second question on whether what we have is then being used for the right purpose. I mean, the Computer Ministries Act tends to curtail a number of digital rights, such as freedom of expression. And how it curtails it is through the usage of ambiguous terminology within the act. So that seems to purport to have a stringent limitation freedom of expression, and we've seen this happening in Balanyazi and even the difference. So the challenge that we are really having at the end of the day is that we don't have a sufficient legal framework, and even what we have at the moment is being weaponized by the state to limit the digital rights. Is we need to really rethink our digital legal framework and our policy, because when you look at other countries like Ghana, Estonia, and Kenya itself, these guys have had an opportunity to devote their legal framework by providing for specific rights and the powers of different entities within the operation of the jurisdiction they have. I'll give you a good example as I conclude. Twitter can shut down and close down and remove tweets made by an individual like President Donald Trump. And then the question is, do you have a framework that provides for it? Does the Twitter organization have the power to do that? Is it not curtailing freedom of speech? What does the country do about it? And questions like those. So those unanswered questions are quite very numerous in the Ugandan perspective. And I think that we really need to rethink our legal framework in that regard.
Okay, thank you so much, Benson, for that. So let me bring Ruth into the discussion. So Ruth, let's discuss more about digital rights. What do you think are the importance to protect these digital rights?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Could you please go again?
The question is, why is it important to protect digital rights?
Thank you so much. First of all, to give a background for the answer I'm going to give, we know that in our understanding that digital rights are actually an extension of the universal human rights. So the question comes in, why is it important even to protect human rights? Yeah, why is it important to protect a freedom of expression, freedom of speech, to have an education? Because all these rights, whether or not we realize it, happen to cross over to the field of the digital world. The digital world is not something that we step in physically. However, our presence is always there. So why is it important? First of all, I do believe that there cannot be development without democracy. There cannot be a moving forward, a positive shift of society without people expressing themselves, putting out their opinions and being listened to. So if the rights are not protected, for instance, if people cannot express their opinions, if they cannot express themselves, it means that when content is going to be created that should be shared, we're not going to see this content. Schools of thoughts are not going to develop. Why? Because there's no protection for them. They are marginalized, they are pushed, they are not having a safe space where all their opinions can be listened to. So I do believe that generally that all the advantages, all the reasons, the rationale behind protecting of human rights, all apply to the protection of digital rights, because this is a world we are living in. This is a world we are using. For instance, if we are not protected, for example, our right to privacy, how do we know when people post their information and maybe they want to retrieve it? We know that we have a right to forget. It's a digital right. And perhaps they want to delete their information and there is no protection for that, and they cannot delete their information. How many people are going to access this information? How many people are going to tap into these people's privacy? That is where we're going to see kidnapping coming forward. That is where we're going to see people's accounts being hacked into. We know, for instance, that there's a lot of hacking. However, if there were laws to put a kind of shelter around activities that people do on the internet, some of these things would be cut down. I think even some of these things would not be happening, which is a very big hope. However, I do believe that it is vital for positive shift in society so that we can get people's opinion. We did not know that certain things could happen. We did not know that things were possible, for instance, until people came out and talked about them. We did not know that, for instance, people were oppressed until people came and talked about it, emphasized it, because they were protected and given the right to speak about it. So we shifted positively. Laws were put in place against oppression. Laws were put in place for good work ethic. So one is a positive shift, and then two is generally for protection of our privacy, generally for preserving of society. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruth, who argues and advances the reasons for protecting the digital rights. Let me bring Derrick into the discussion and pick right from Ruth. So, Derrick, we listened to Ruth discuss why it is important to protect digital rights. On the other hand, we have seen several things happen on the internet. We have seen there are issues of cyber harassment amidst other things that happen on the internet. And my question to you is, do you think it is necessary to provide some limitations to digital rights?
Okay, thank you so much. So I also want to give a very brief background to the digital space and how it is really contributing to our development as a country. Yeah, so as we might all of us remember, with the coming of COVID-19, most of the activities that we used to do really shifted to digital spaces. For example, people could do all the shopping, the prayers, then school, work, meditation, talking to parents, and also democratic conversations like the ones that we are having right now. All of that shifted to digital spaces. So I just wanted to underscore the great importance of digital spaces, that they really shouldn't be ignored, and they should really be given greater importance, because they are very, very important going forward. And as we all might know, digital spaces or the internet itself really contributes, or it can even tend to contribute a significant part to our economy. That's if it is harnessed and used to its full potential. Yeah. So back to the question that you've asked about limiting digital freedoms, so that to avoid things like cyber harassment. Yeah, so there have been concerns about the government always coming in to limit freedoms of people, because let's say they're usually arguing about the moral perspective, or let's say limiting transforming all people's lives. But this is what I can say in relation to that. I think as countries have become more repressive in nature, and as they've come to want to grow more dictatorial, these have instead turn to social media spaces or digital spaces, because as we know, it's digital spaces where people usually engage, where people usually come together to associate freely, do a lot of innovation, and really come together as a people to share ideas. But so I think it is not okay. I think it would be a lie for the government to come up and say that there is need to limit, let's say, social media engagements because it wants to advance, let's say, a moral agenda, because morals are really a different issue. Different communities view morals differently. What you see as morally right is what another person could see as, let's say, morally non-right. Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, I would say that too many rules are really not so good for digital spaces, so let's say innovation or creativity. But then also, too few rules are also a tragedy. I'll give an example of there is an innovation that came up in the US of autonomous cars, whereby those cars could be driven by themselves. So we saw there were very few regulations on that part, and in the end, there was a person that was knocked down by those autonomous cars. So I think regulation can always come in, but not to an extent of, let's say, limiting people's freedoms. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Derrick. So moving to Pretta. So Pretta, we have had very interesting discussions about digital rights, and from what I have got right from Benson to Derrick, there are some challenges that have come out right from the debaters that we see are associated with digital rights. So my question to you is, how do we address some of these challenges to ensure that people are able to benefit from the spaces that have been created by digital rights?
Okay, so there have been numerous challenges for people worldwide in enjoying their digital rights. As I've said before, we have had online bullying, I've had the production of child pornography, hacking of people's accounts, invasion of privacy and all that. But I feel like in all of this, there is one major solution. I think that in order to combat all the challenges in the enjoyment of digital rights, we need to have a global law that protects digital rights. We have seen the United Nations, it has created many global laws on labor, on gender. And I feel like as we move forward in the 21st century, it is vital to have digital laws that protect digital rights worldwide. Because, for example, although a country like Uganda instituted digital rights per se to regulate Twitter or Facebook, there is always a way to work around, those arrangements. Someone can use VPN and their location might never be found, or they can use pseudonyms and all that. So I think that on the international level, on the global scale, there is need for the formation of a committee and policy and laws that to safeguard the digital rights, so that the users of these digital platforms can enjoy their use of these platforms without feeling that at any moment their rights are going to be invaded, or that something bad will happen in reality. Yes, that's my submission.
Okay, Pretta, that is quite interesting. Let me bring back Benson. So Benson, Pretta says that we need an international law that is global, that governs issues of digital rights. And I would like us to address this before we move into putting together emerging technologies and digital rights. And what I want your take on is that, do you agree with Pretta? Because we have had issues of state sovereignty interfering with international law. We have had people even question whether international law is actually law. So do you agree with Pretta? Do you think having an international law that governs issues of digital rights would solve the different problems associated with digital rights so that we are able to enjoy the benefits?
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's a very, very packed question, because it tends to a number of things, stretching right away from Pretta's submission, and then the need to delve into the intricacies of international law and what it would mean. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is agree with Pretta. I agree that a concerted effort towards fighting digital cyber harassment and digital cyber crime is one of the ways how we do it. In fact, if anything, there has been, and there still are, various attempts by different states to have mutual cooperation under various treaties and agreements, such as the Paris Treaty, the Paris Agreement, as well as convention, whereby states have made the deliberate attempt to. So what I was saying is basically that there are about three aspects to look at. Firstly is to qualify Pretta's submission and agree with her and say that we need concerted effort towards fighting cybercrime, and also by providing for digital rights. Then second is to delve into the intricacies and see whether that is actually enforceable and if it's going to be effective. And then third, in the consequence that it is not there. So I think acknowledge that mutual effort is paramount. Firstly, because the global world, such as the one we live in today, pretty much dictates the fact that states such as ours, third world countries or developing countries, require the financial muscle, require the intellectual and technical support that comes from states that have virtually developed into robust states that have a very robust framework, legal framework providing for data rights, but also that those that have technologically advanced, such as China and the United States and Japan, I think, if anything, should be given credit for its technological development. But then when you look at the efforts of the United Nations in relation to things such as the Paris Agreement, the Bucharest Convention, states have taken the attempt to make these concerted efforts, but the question is, are they enforceable? Which takes me to your question of whether international law is indeed really law. And the challenge that with that is really the fact that there is a question of in the United States of America, of digital rights with the access to information, free and fair election with regard to digital information that's being shared on Twitter, questions of privacy. So there is that international law does indeed preserve certain rights and etc. because there's a serious question of sovereignty, and states need to ratify, or if anything, they need to be signatory to, must not be forced to be a part of this law. And all that has come from an international perspective is really the academic literature as well as positions of international courts, such as General on I think Article 19 of the Individual Rights that has freedom of expression even in digital spaces. But you still go ahead to see states violating this specific provision and it being in contrast with what the international position says. So I think there's a very strong argument there in relation to international cooperation. But I think really what we need to do actually is to look at a more contemporary legal framework, specifically looking at the different states revamping the various acts that Uganda's laws, because at least we are certain that it's much easier to hold Uganda accountable within its own legal framework as opposed to a treaty that it is not signatory to, nor a treaty that people lack the finances or even the efforts to take, for example, Uganda through to the African Court on Human and People's Rights. So I think really what we need to be looking at, in as much as we attempt to make international headway, domestic legislation is certainly the way to go. Thank you.
Okay, Benson, I think you did justice to that question that was quite long. So pausing on digital rights and moving into emerging technologies. Earlier on, Pretta gave us a link between emerging technologies and digital rights. So speaking specifically about emerging technologies, and I'll bring Derrick into the discussion. So Derrick, looking at Uganda and also the world globally, what is the current status of the emerging technologies?
Okay, thank you so much. So about the emerging technologies in Uganda here, I wouldn't say that we are doing so well about being very innovative and creative, but I think we've done a good job on the part of being adaptive to the emerging technologies. Because as you may know, most of the activities and most of the production has now shifted to technology. So going forward, it's really very, very important for people and all countries to become adaptive to the emerging technologies, because that's where production and emerging technologies really contribute a greater part to our GDP and our economy. I'll give you an example of the safe border. Yeah, so safe border is a very good thing. It is a technology that came through whereby you just have to make a phone call, and then or you just have to tap your internet and then make a phone call, and then a ride will be very near to you, and then it will take you to your destination. So with this, we see this is very convenient. It really saves time, but then also this is very disruptive in a way that it is driving other people out of employment. Yeah, there are some people that really got unemployed because emerging technologies come on board. So I think the issue of emerging technologies has to be looked at very, very critically. There needs to be regulation, but not too much regulation, because also too much regulation of emerging technologies, I think, will stifle creativity. But then also going forward, there needs to be at least little regulation, so that people can move into the technologies. And I think these technologies are not shouldn't be feared, because they really contribute tremendously to the growth of nations. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Derrick. Moving to Ruth. So Ruth, when you look at our topic, we are looking at the role of the youth in all this. And my question to you is going to be very, very direct. What role does the youth play in all this?
Thank you so much. As I earlier mentioned, I do believe that we are living in an era that has not happened before. We are living in different times. We are living in circumstances that maybe people who are before us did not live in. There are pros and then there are cons of living in such an era of emerging technologies. However, we have to accept certain facts. For example, that now literacy rates are higher. Perhaps now the life expectancy is higher because we have made advancements in education, we have made advancements in health, and with all these benefits that we have had in this era, I do believe that the youth have a responsibility, which takes me to that question of what role do the youth have in such an era. I believe that the number one role that the youth have is being informed. and rightfully informed. Yeah, the youth, we know that many people have come up to say that there is an age beyond which people stop perceiving and learning. However, now that we are in the age of being the youth and we are open to learning and we are more literate and our life expectancy is even higher, we have to put these resources that we have got to good use. As I've said, one, we have to be informed from the right sources, equipped with the right knowledge. If these technologies are coming up, it is disappointing to find that the people who are spreading propaganda, wrong information, about different products, about different things are basically the youth. Being the youth would believe that we have energy, we have this fluidity, we have this ability to acclimatize to anything that comes up, which is true. And I do believe that the youth have that capability. It is discouraging, for instance, to find that the youth are going to hear things, hearsays, and then go on to spread. I hear that maybe technology, for instance, family planning methods, I hear that perhaps cause infertility or whatever. And basically, most of this information that we do find is unresearched information. We do know that manufacturers put out this information, which is ready, that can be tapped in by anyone. As I've said, we are living in an era where we have internet, where the youth can access this internet. So I do believe that it is our responsibility to use this internet, to use our ability to acclimatize, to learn, in order to tap this new information. So secondly, I do believe that it is also our role that after we get informed, we spread this right information, that we have the power to do so, because we can use Twitter, we can use Facebook, we can use Instagram, we have TikTok, and these what do they call, these platforms are dominated mainly by the youth. So I do believe that we have a role in spreading this right information, that after we have become informed, we can tell these people what is right, we can inform them so that they can make informed choices. I do believe certainly that to develop, to have the youth developing a school of thought of their own that they can transmit to other people is the best thing that can happen to society. Because when thoughts are not tapped or closed into a bottle, we can look into people's opinions and say, oh, well, this is good, or well, this is bad, or we should promote this, or we should not promote this. So if the youth pass this information, develop their own school of thought, they are protected by the law that is going to maybe be transformed to cater for these emerging technologies. I do believe that they are capable of achieving even greater things. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Ruth, before I move to Pretta, I would like to ask you something else, still prompting more into your discussion. The platforms that we have, like you said, we have the digital space. Are the youth in Uganda using the digital space to innovate?
I do think that is an interesting question, because personally, I find being entertained better than innovating something for a whole year. But of course, that does not mean that there are no youth that are using these things to innovate. Derrick did talk about Safe Border. We know that Safe Border was formed. We know that there are people that are coming up with new technologies. So are the youth using it to innovate? I do believe that they are using the emerging technologies to be innovative. However, I also think that they are not reaching the capability they should be reaching in innovation using these new technologies.
Okay, let me move to Pretta. Pretta, I would like you to pick right from where Ruth stopped. He said the youth have not yet reached to that level, where we say they are using this to innovate, using their full potential. The spaces are there, the laws have been given. Why is it that the youth have not yet reached that level where we say Uganda has a high level of innovation? That is where I would like you to pick up from.
Personally, I think that the Ugandan youth are innovating these emerging technologies. But the problem is should I say, there's a lack of exposure. They create these apps, these virtual reality games, and they don't really get very far. For example, just this week, students from Makerere University, the College of Information Science, they created Chikoni Sure. It is an app on Google Play that it's should I say it's the Ugandan version of Tinder and all those other dating apps. So by the creation of that app, we can see that the youth are revolutionizing the dating scene in the country. But the problem is that apart from innovating, apart from creating these technologies, for these technologies to take off, there has to be a large number of users. And Ugandans love to use things that already are established. When something is beginning, there's a lot of skepticism. There isn't really any support. Also, I remember in that period of 2012 to 2016, students from SEDAT, the engineering students, they came up with the Kira EV. It's a bus that uses solar to travel. And it was a very good idea. It was written in magazines and newspapers all over the world. But in all this time, we haven't really seen the idea taking off. For example, if we're to be a much better developed country, we would see that a plant of maybe Mercedes or Toyota was opened up and, is working on improving the Kira EV idea and, vehicles that use solar power to travel. But we don't see that happening. The economy is bad. People are already using the big apps. For example, also, I would like to use the example of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg developed the concept of Facebook while he was still at Harvard, because it began as an app that was matching the students at the university. But then it gained a large number of users that, it evolved and it became an online global platform. And now we have Facebook, Instagram, we have Messenger, we have WhatsApp. All these are now apps under the metaverse. And the metaverse is, a whole new world. It is a whole emerging world of virtual technologies, of virtual realities, and it has a lot of potential. So I think that the Ugandan youth are innovating, they are creating, but the hard part is getting from, creating new app and having it, first of all, blow up like in Uganda, then regionally. Then people outside Africa will be like, oh, this app is nice, we can also use it. So I guess the issue is the lack of exposure to advance the technologies being created by the Ugandan youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Pretta. That was quite interesting. So Pretta advances the argument that Ugandan youth are actually being innovative, and she was able to give us some of the life examples. So let me bring Benson into this discussion. So Benson, we are talking about emerging technologies, innovation, and the Ugandan youth. And my question to you is, do you think there is, the government has created an environment where the Ugandan youth are able to freely innovate and are promoted in the different innovations that they are making?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the question really is asking if the government is, specifically the youth, in terms of science and technology. And I'm really torn apart in responding to that question, because I know that the creation of an environment can either be through implicit means or through explicit means. Say, for example, the creation of a good environment would mean creating enough schools that are particularly specialized for innovation and creation. It would equally mean providing better universal education with respect to emerging technologies and whether we're preparing. It would also mean things such as setting aside scholarships. And I don't see the government doing much of that. But then again, you have on the other hand, the government encouraging sciences within schools and encouraging students to take up science subjects. But then again, at the end of the day, there is that the government is not doing really enough. And this respects to government obligations. And with respect to some of the you look at budgetary allocations with respect to education, and all this guide us to a conclusion that the government is doing enough to encourage innovation. Personally, I think the brief research that I've undertaken over the years with regard to government spending, government loans, some of the loans that they get do not really are never really spent on education, and even if they are never really aimed at innovation, science, and technology. I think more so when we look at how the government has responded during COVID-19 and the education question, I think the government has been quite very to guide its students in environments, things such as data packages that do come from government in itself. And I think this is a very huge challenge because very many students are actually falling out of line when it comes to innovation and the entire idea of science and development. So I think the government is not doing enough in respect to getting a direct action, direct contribution to getting that environment. Alternatively, it can be argued that the government setting up USC by trying to encourage students, but that is never really challenges students. The challenges that are much more evident. I think it becomes quite evident that the government really needs to do much more than what it is doing at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving to Derrick. So, Derrick, before we wrap up on digital rights and emerging technologies and then move on to look at climate justice, which is something that is also quite interesting, my question to you is, how do we as a country, let's look at Uganda in this case, how do we as a country ensure that we fully utilize the innovation that are being made by our youth? Earlier on, we heard from Pretta who said the youth are actually being innovative. And then we heard from Benson who says government is not being supportive. So that's where you come in. How do we as a country ensure that we promote the innovations that are being made by the youth and also ensure that the youth stay innovative?
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I want to underscore what the previous panelists have talked about, the role of government in stimulating innovations and creativity. I'll also give an example. At our college, the College of Business and Management Sciences, we usually have an expo every year. So this is whereby in our classes, in our different courses at the College of Business, we are usually divided into 10 students, and whereby we do a course unit called entrepreneurship. And in that course unit, we all of us are required to come up with new ideas, maybe something that has never been around, or maybe adding value to something, and then you create an idea, and then which let's say turns into a business idea. And there is that specific day whereby we have to present at the Freedom Square, and very many people usually come around to see the good ideas and good businesses that we have that we have come up with. But usually people come up with very, very transformative ideas and very good ideas, because I can remember one time a group of students made is it sanitary pads from our local fibers, sort of. And this is something that could be, let's say, transformed. And that's where the role of government could, let's say, come in. For example, take an example, if the Ministry of ICT could have, let's say, a portion of a budget that usually goes to university innovations. Let's say an initiative like our business expo is, let's say, taken up by the Ministry of ICT, whereby those guys usually come on that very day to root out for very nice ideas and very good businesses. Because, as you know, it's business ideas and creativity that lead to development. Because if people come up with new ideas, they're going to come up with new businesses, and these new businesses are going to create employment, which is eventually going to add to the GDP of countries. But on that day, you usually don't see any government official around. I don't know if they're not informed about the issue. And I think it's only the best group which walks away with money of around 3 million. And I don't think really that can do something much in stepping up that innovation. Yeah, so I wanted to underscore that. And then going forward to what you've talked about what should be done. First of all, I'll also center my discussion towards the government. There is a time that I and my friends, were a group of 9 people, we came up with an idea of starting a business. But then, as we're going to start that business, we actually, even most of our discussions were usually happening online, because at that time we're in a lockdown. So we used to talk on WhatsApp, then also hold Zoom meetings, coming up with ideas and brainstorming and like that. So a point reached when we had gotten the idea. But the biggest problem was accessing capital for us, because really we are students, and some of us, let's say our parents are not that well off. So a part reached whereby we had to get the capital to start off our businesses. So about that, someone suggested a part of borrowing money from the banks. But as you know, the banking framework, it is really very, very complex, whereby the interest rates are very, very high. It's so hard for a person to borrow money from a bank. First of all, if you don't have collateral, and most of us are very young people, we've not, let's say, bought any land. And then talking about the interest rates are about 21%. Yeah, and that's really very, very high for individuals like the youth and the students to borrow money, because eventually students will, the youth need to have capital to kick off or to kickstart their ideas or their innovative, those nice ideas, because those nice ideas are not going to go into existence by themselves. There needs to be money. So I think the government would do well in streamlining its monetary policy to suit the nature of investment that would be good for, let's say, boosting creativity and innovations. Yeah, so that's one part of it, working upon the monetary system. And then the other thing is talking about the sensitization among the youth. Yeah, so very many people have a mentality that maybe they will look for jobs, but also sensitizing people about entrepreneurship and then coming up with new ideas should be really a very top priority for the government, because the government could actually put up a budget going around schools, let's say secondary schools and then universities. The only instance of that I have seen is a private-led initiative, which is by Stanbic Bank. But if this was taken up by the government, I think it would allocate good money for students to be sensitized about entrepreneurship, for students to be told how they could come up with new ideas and how they could develop their countries. Yeah, so that's what I think that maybe could be done.
Okay, thank you so much, Derrick. And that wraps up the discussion on emerging technology. So let's move to climate justice. This is something that we have talked about for so many years globally, at a regional level, at a national level. We are talking about climate justice. And that is where Ruth comes in. So Ruth, in Uganda, where are we? What is the current status of climate justice?
Thank you so much for the question. Well, in Uganda, I think that Uganda is an interesting country, of course, as others are. First of all, I do think from the definition of climate justice, we know that this calls for equal responsibility, fair sharing of the responsibility and benefits and the burden that comes from climate change. So in Uganda, where are we? So in Uganda, I think that we are at a level where, of course, as the other parts of the world, we are affected by climate change because it is a global problem. It is going to affect us the same way it affects Europe. It is going to affect Africa. It is going to affect Uganda. However, I do believe that we are at a level where we have not had a mindset shift by the general population. We do believe in Uganda, for instance, that this is not our problem, that climate change and hence climate justice is not our concern. I mean, for instance, we are castigating day in, day out, perhaps countries that no longer have wetlands, countries that are building skyscrapers, countries that are emitting a lot of carbon on all CFCs and all that water vapor into the atmosphere. And we do believe that, well, we are not at that level where we have reached the development that is going to give us a problem of climate change. So I do believe that as Ugandans, we have not yet accepted that the problem of climate change and hence the importance of climate justice is at our door and it is knocking at the forefront. I think that we have not had enough exposure, integration to show us how other people's problems are our problems. For instance, if the ozone layer is destroyed, if there is a lot of UV rays that are hitting the surface of the earth in Europe, because I mean they have maybe their ozone layer is more damaged than ours here because a lot of massive industrialization. We think that perhaps in our thinking that when there is global warming, it is only going to affect Europe. However, we know that when we are calculating global warming, it is on a global scale, yeah? The Earth's surface, which we all indeed do share, the water bodies, which we indeed do share, and also the land, we calculate it as a whole, as a globe. So I do think that we have not yet realized as Ugandans how important climate change is for us. I usually hear Ugandans saying certain things are not for this continent, that they are for other continents, that for us we do not have industries, that we are not doing a lot of destruction of the environment, which we are. I do believe that Uganda is at the stage where we are developing rapidly, where we are setting up industries. There was a fruit industry that was set up in northern Uganda. We are seeing industries emerging here and there. We are soon going to have phone industries. I do think that Ugandans should realize that we are on our way to more development and that climate change is an issue and it is going to continue to be an issue and that we should indeed open our eyes. But I do think we have not yet reached that level of realization for the majority of the population. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruth. Moving to Pretta. Pretta, if I remember from the introduction, is that you are a law student. So my question to you will be a little bit legal. And it is that Do you think as Uganda we have legislated enough to protect the environment and to promote climate justice?
We have statutes on about conserving the environment. We have created statutory bodies like NEMA, Wildlife Authority. The bodies do exist. But what I'd like to say that as the government, there is lacking political will to stop climate change. In Uganda, the government is apathetic. It is indifferent to the whole climate justice movement. I remember last year, is it in November, President Museveni wrote a letter, I think it was to either New York Times or the Washington Post, whereby he was saying that Uganda as a country and Africa, that we cannot consider climate change or climate justice at this point that we are at. Because like he gave the example that in Uganda, we have just discovered the oil in the Albertine region, and adopting climate policies would come in the way of getting the oil. So he says that the Western countries have had that time to gather wealth, and they can now care about minor issues like climate change and conservation. He said that as for now, Uganda and Africa as the continent, we should focus on mining, getting energy, and developing economically. So basically, from that letter that the president showed, it clearly shows that Uganda isn't focused on climate justice. It is second thought or even 10th thought. Also, we have seen that yes, bodies like NEMA are there. It is a statutory body there to stop land degradation. But I remember it was last year, the NEMA officials went to Rosebud Flowers in Entebbe. The company is built on a swamp. So they wanted to talk to the officials and tell them that you have built your company on this swamp, and like whenever you build something, whenever you try to reclaim the swamp, you can be safe for 10 years, then out of the blue, the water will come and the buildings will collapse. So NEMA officials actually went to the company and they called police on them. The police that you are not allowed to be here. And they had to leave. In Mabira Forest. In 2020, there was a paranormal report on NTV about how the inside parts of the forest have been cut down for timber and the creation of charcoal and all that. And the next week, we saw the minister of conservation. At that time, it was Beatrice Anywa. And like she came to NBS and she rebutted all the claims that the trees had been cut down inside Mabira Forest. Yet us who use that road regularly, we can see that the trees aren't as thick as they used to be during our childhood. Also in 2017, I think it was the Madvan. Madvan wanted to create another sugar company in Atiak, and they were cutting down the trees so they could plant sugarcane. And the government had given them the go-ahead until the locals said, no, you are not going to cut down these trees. They have our ancestral spirits and all that. So I think generally we have laws. The laws are there to protect and conserve the environment. But without political will, without the leaders really saying that, oh, climate change and climate justice are necessary, these laws are just sitting, they're just there. They're useless. That's my submission. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Pretta. That was quite elaborate. So let me bring Benson into the discussion. So Benson, starting from where Pretta stopped, do you think in Uganda the issue is promotion of development that the government claims, or you think there is a different agenda why we are not advancing this fight of climate justice?
Thank you very much, Ms. Gender. So I think really we are in, I think we're in a bit of a fix between a rock and a hard place, and perhaps maybe to be the devil's advocate on this particular point, I think I would argue in favor of the government, because from a more pragmatic venture, you have the Western world, which is by and large on the extreme with respect to how they have been able to build systems, build infrastructure, and have that kind of transition from fossil energy to clean energy. And then you have, on the other hand, a group of third world developing require exploitation. So I think that what they're trying to balance in between, especially when it comes to the question of oil and gas, with recent discoveries in the Albertine region, it becomes harder for us to make the argument that we should discard it and clean energy and electric cars. When you look at the numbers that come from UNRWA or even UBOS, it becomes quite difficult to make the argument that we should entirely be looking forward to having an entirely clean environment. And I think, if anything, the consequences of climatic change and as a result of emissions and significant destruction of the ozone layer has never been as a result of African activities. In fact, if anything, largely of China, Japan, Korea, the United States, and all these other countries like Brazil as well, which have undertaken very rigorous activities in industrialization. So this is an industrial revolution at a time when all we could contribute to was another whereby we went to one revolution becomes more hasty reconciliation that we should entirely clean and safe energy. So what's the solution? I think the solution is really to strike a balance in between where not lose focus of the world, also should lose focus of development while government system breaks.
Benson, your network was a bit jumpy, but if I got you well, one of your last statements was about striking a balance between the two. Was that what you were trying to say? Okay, we will have you back at a later time then. Moving to Derrick. So Derrick, we have these two: development promoting climate justice. Which way should we go? We are at this dilemma as a country.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I want to underscore the threat that really the issue of climate change poses. It's really very huge, and actually, it's the most poor countries like our country, like Uganda, that are going to suffer most because of this issue of climate change. You realize they are raising sea levels. There is a lot of drought. There are floods. There are storms. There are heat waves, and this really tends to impact so much and punish so much the Africans. For example, Uganda here, we've experienced floods. For example, in is it Kasese, whereby the river Nyamwamba over flooded and that led to a standstill, destroying crops. And I think that really hurt a significant part of our GDP and our development. Yeah, so really that's the problem that we face if we don't actually move in to tackle the issue of climate change. But also, I think it's very unfair for us as a country or as Africa to discuss the issue of climate change in isolation of the global context. So here is a dilemma, as you guys have called it, whereby the rich countries, the countries of US, China, Brazil, India, these guys have really attained development. They've built skyscrapers, they've built big manufacturing industries, and they've really cashed in on these things. They've been able to move hundreds of people from poverty. And we are also having here Africa that has just started realizing its minerals and its potential, whereby, let's say in Uganda, we've just discovered oil. And we also want to move hundreds of people from poverty such that people are able to really realize better standards of living. And so the rich countries have really contributed very much to the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, whereby actually countries like the US, the global north entirely, it actually accounts for 92% of carbon dioxide emissions. And actually Uganda and Africa really doesn't have a lot of emissions it puts out in the air. So going forward about the solutions, what I think is that I think we should hold the international community to account. For example, there was an idea that was brought forward, and this has actually been implemented by some countries, an idea about reparations, whereby the developed countries like the US and Brazil, China, they will have to really stop putting out emissions and then also pay reparations to the developing countries for using up more than their fair share of emissions, because these guys have really used up their budget for the emissions. So I think it is best that those countries really pay reparations to African countries, and this has been ongoing. Yeah, I think it's a valid point, because we also need to achieve that development and prosperity, because it's important. We are not going to be poor for all our lifetime. So I think that's a very, very valid point. Yeah, and then I think because the burdens or the consequences of climate change will affect us, let's say at the same proportion or even more severely here in Africa, it's very important for our governments to put in place mechanisms that would really help to curb climate change or the consequences of climate change. For example, we can hold, let's say, the big companies, for example, Shell, to account for the emissions, let's say, they put into the air. Yeah, so I think also the government has a bit of a regulation to do, towards that very issue. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Derrick, for that. Bringing back Ruth into the discussion. So Ruth, I would like you to imagine yourself in a position of authority, and you've been approached by these investors that are going to put a lot of money into a huge project that is going to employ Ugandans, going to bring a lot of income. As you know, these companies are taxed. But on the other hand, the place that they're supposed to construct this this structure and put up this investment is supposed to be in a wetland, in a huge wetland, what would you do? Would you grant their prayers, or would you choose to conserve the environment? You have the floor.
I think that it is an interesting question again. So we know that there is what we call environmental impact assessment, yeah? And in this process, we know, for instance, that relevant bodies are supposed to look into this supposed project and look at the pros and then weigh it with the cons, look at how the environment is going to be affected, look at if the effects can be mitigated so they are not fast spread. Is it possible? All of that comes with environmental impact assessment. So the question that has been given to me is an interesting one again. Of course, definitely, I do think that it is not reasonable to hold back development because we want to conserve our lives. Yeah, I do think that. For instance, let me use an example. In the development of the Ebola, of the polio vaccine, we know that 1,000 monkeys were used. Yeah, these are primates. This is wildlife that should be conserved. They were used in lab tests and they were killed. Yeah, they were killed. We lost those. What am I trying to draw to at this point? That yes, we do know that we have to conserve. Yeah, we cannot hold out development because we are trying to conserve the environment. However, also the question that comes into play with environmental impact assessment is, even when we are putting a development at the forefront, what effect is it going to have on our environment? So again, back to the position of the polio vaccine, how many lives have been saved at the cost of 1 million monkeys? How many people have been saved? How many people is the vaccine continuing to save? And anyway, haven't the monkeys reproduced to go back to the 1 million that was taken from them? So whereas monkeys can reproduce, yeah, a wetland does not reproduce. It is an interesting observation to make. We do know, for instance, that there is new technology. The question that comes into play is, how can we mitigate the effects? So if at all technology is there, which is there to do the work the wetland has been doing, yeah? And if we are going to have this factory and mitigate effects on the environment, I think the development would be the way to go, because I do not believe that it is a profitable thing to hold out development for the purpose of conserving the environment, because at the end of the day, we are having development that is going to help us push forward as a society. Even climate change, at the basis of it all, it is to help people, to conserve people's lives. So if development is coming to better people's lives, yes, it must be given a tick, but then the tick must still be checked. Yeah, what is it going to bring into play? How is it going to affect the environment? Can we mitigate the things that are going to come from building a big industry in the wetland? How can we look at all this at all? So I do think that with expertise, expert opinion, we would certainly, in a place of authority, build that company, if it was, of course, a worthwhile company that is going to outweigh the effect it will have on the environment. Thank you.
Okay, so let me move to Pretta. So Pretta, you started this discussion of climate justice and you're going to end it. So my question to you is, what do we do as a country to also contribute to promotion of climate justice, despite issues of development, the politics, and all those issues? How do we also contribute to promote it?
As the youth, I think our biggest role in climate justice is to influence, because not many youth are in the policy making seats. We don't have, we're not economically empowered, we're not politically empowered. So the best thing that the youth can do is to keep on influencing, to talk about climate justice at any chance they get. We have seen Vanessa Nakate, talking about climate justice on the global scale, talking about the intersection of climate change and women's rights in the country. We have seen how Pretta Thunberg's, Friday for Future campaign has, gotten up to the UN, and she's influencing decision making on climate justice worldwide. So as the youth, the best thing we can do is talk about climate change, to influence the people around us to, adopt climate positive policies and all that. Like in Uganda, you look around and many people don't really know much about climate change. People think that climate change is something of the future. They think that it isn't happening now. Like people who live in the cities, you live in Kampala, you get your food, everything is okay. You don't realize that in the villages that, there is flooding, there is drought, and all those things are happening because of climate change. So as the youth, the best thing we can do is, talk about climate change, to influence those around us to, take up climate positive gestures. That's the best thing we can do. And I think our influencing can bring about climate justice in the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pretta. We are hopeful that after this discussion, we won't hear the citizens, especially the youth, say, if I only clear this part of the wetland, how is it going to affect the entire world, So we hope that after this discussion, the government as well is able to understand and see how to strike a balance between development and issues of climate justice. Thank you so much for this debate. We have come to the end of our debate for today. It has been very, very interesting. I would like to get closing remarks from the debaters. I'll start right from Benson. So Benson, please give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. And I think it's been, perspective, as well with Pretta, we've been undergoing a very intense week at the university, trying to patch up our coursework and try to get most of our academic pursuits a step further. But conversations such as these, especially those that are organized by the CCG, I think are always fundamental to the creation of an intelligentsia that is able to deal with certain questions of national importance and regional importance, really. So I'm always glad to be a part of this conversation. Today's conversation on digital rights, I think, has really created an anxiety or a curiosity into whether the nation is actually ready for the transition to a global world that appreciates more of the digitalization of platforms and digitalization of services. And the question really is, are we really being protected? And what more can we do as a nation, as a region, and as a continent to prepare ourselves for the same? Then, with respect to emerging technologies, I think really the question is, can we contribute substantially to the developing concepts of emerging technology? How do we stand with other countries on the spectrum of artificial intelligence and, the contribution to a very sustainable metaverse with respect to Ugandan innovation and Ugandan custom? And I think lastly, really on the question of climate justice, I think really now we need to start building a moral fabric and be aware of the moral hazard that is yet to befall us as a country when we try to make comparisons between what the best option for us is as a country, whether we should really uphold a Western metric of social justice, or whether we should be in position to mold something that would benefit not just our citizenry or our environment as Africa, but also as a citizenry of Africa and Uganda in particular. It's been great listening in from Derrick, my president, and Pretta, listening from you. I think you're taking us. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you so much, Benson. Let me move to Derrick.
Thank you so much. I should also add my voice to thanking Center for Constitutional Governance for giving us really this opportunity to come onto a digital space to engage and put across really our ideas. I must say that it is very thrilling and very relieving for us to put across our different ideas and to agree or disagree respectfully. I think that's a very wonderful thing. And then yeah, maybe lastly, what I would want to appeal, to all the youths because I believe most of the youths are going to see this show. Yeah, so what I want to appeal to the youths is to really make use of the digital spaces to champion our rights and to see that we live in a really equal environment. Yeah, so it's good for all of us to really use those digital spaces. Whenever you can, go out and tweet what you feel like, because it is your right for you to put out a tweet. Yeah, because at a certain point, these are the spaces whereby creativity shall be bred. Yeah. So whenever you go, whenever you really feel like you can, go engage on social media, really engage in productive engagements, productive conversations. So with that, I think we shall be more creative and more innovative. And then the other thing I would want to urge us, the youth, is to really write more, or let's say because there are those with WhatsApp, you can always put out on your statuses, or writing, you can write articles about climate justice, about digital rights, so that other people that don't know about these things can get to know about these things. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Derrick, for that. Let me also hear from Ruth.
Thank you again. So 3 things we've actually discussed today. We talked about emerging technologies, climate justice, and then we've talked about digital rights. A link that we should draw up is that not many things are known about these 3 topics. Not much information has spread to the general population about these 3 things. Also, not much concern is drawn by. Not much concern is coming from the general population about these 3 things. It has been a very engaging debate. I do believe certainly that the youth out there are living a basic life of my phone, whether they can get food from the market or the supermarket, and of course whether they can have an AC or a fan in their houses, which I do believe are directly connected with these 3 topics, that where there is a phone, there might be a new technology tomorrow, and you might have your digital rights protected. And where a fan and AC can do the cooling of the room, we could do much better without these things that have side effects. And if we do look at our climate critically, then certainly that, of course, food is going to be affected if global warming does happen. I do believe that the youth should critically look at this. I believe that the panelists have done a great job bringing enlightenment on these 3 topics. And of course, I certainly believe that we are going to advance and change for the better. It is easy to blame government, but then it is quite hard if you are put in an unimaginative position to feel that you are the government. What would you do? Perhaps would you do a better job? And if you could you spread this information so that people can do a better job? Because basically we do believe in democracy and that we have the power at the end of the day to make decisions. So I do thank the organizers. I do thank the panelists. It has been quite engaging and thought-provoking, and definitely would be glad to have more conversations like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Let's hear from Pretta. So Pretta, you're welcome to give us your closing remarks.
I would like to thank CCG for hosting this kinds of forums whereby we can talk, discuss, and deliberate on pertinent issues. I would like to say that in summary of this discussion, I would like to encourage all the youth out there to influence for digital rights, influence for climate justice. We are living in a world that is full of influencers. You influence someone to buy something. So I would like to encourage them to influence for change. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pretta, and thank you so much, the debaters from Makerere University. I really appreciate. This has been a very interesting discussion. Thank you to our panelists, Benson, Mayanja, Ruth, Kyobutungi, Baluuku, Derrick, and Pretta, Namasaba. Thank you so much for the very interesting discussions that you people advanced today. And once again, congratulations for making it to the quarterfinals. Today, we were discussing the topic, digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth? And the students of Makerere University did justice to this topic, which is very interesting. This debate is brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV, and it airs on Civic Space TV on YouTube every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Next week, we'll be having another university that also made it to the quarterfinals. When we finish the internal debates, we will be holding the quarterfinal debates where the universities will again tackle each other on a panel, and we will see which university makes it to the semifinals. Will Makerere University make it to the semifinals? You just have to stick to this channel so that you're able to watch and follow up with your university, your former university, and as well so that you're able to share the ideas, your ideas as well on the topics. You can always go on Twitter and tag CCG, Civic Space TV, and put in your discussions when it comes to some of these topics. And as well, you can put it in the comment section what you think, your views. And our hope and our prayer is that the stakeholders are able to watch this and are able to act. From me and from the team from CCG and Civic Space, we say thank you, and this debate ends here. Till next week. Bye.